like, wow, what I had no idea that something
Mm.
like that could impact your whole, like for me, mostly my brain, my energy, my lack of concentration,
Yeah.
my brain fog, my anxiety. All of a sudden, I had those like 3 a.m. I think a lot of women know about these. Those
Yeah.
3 a.m. waking up, being anxious about, oh my God, I have this meeting tomorrow. And I was thinking about how can I get out
Hmm.
of this meeting? The interesting thing is, last year I thought this was it. 11 months without a period, and then it started again. So
Okay.
it's
Close, but not quite there. Yeah.
I'm close, but
Yeah.
not quite there yet. And I have to say, the
Right.
last few
Right.
months were like terrible with that regards because I really
Oh,
I feel my body pushing so hard so I it's really trying to get that the yeah to get the egg out and so I
yeah.
really feel all of a sudden again what I never had, all those like changes in your body during ovulation and then
Hmm.
your period.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's a totally different experience than like 5 years ago.
Well, hello and welcome to the show. Today I have Sascha Vrolijk with me today. Hi, Sascha.
Hi, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Yes, you are another example of women that I am running into. It's just amazing, that we connect on different levels. I found your podcast, which we will talk a little bit about today, or a lot about today, and all of the amazing topics, and just bringing you to your show and how important that is for all of us. So tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you hope they walk away with today.
Yeah, well, indeed, we run into each other because I was looking for the connection between perimenopause and diabetes type 1. In my whole perimenopause journey, that is one of those missing things that you don't hear a lot about. So I was super happy when I was like, oh, there is actually more information about this. So that was super
Mm.
cool. But yeah, I am Sascha, 48 years old. Figured out I was in perimenopause about 2 years ago, and also realizing that I was probably in perimenopause already for 5 to 7 years. I actually quit my job because I thought something is wrong with me. I was always working in startup environments, very fast environments, and I loved it. And all of a sudden, I felt insecure.
Mhm.
Started to forget a lot of things. I started to figure out why did this happen. It's probably the organization. It's probably the people. I tried to figure out what it was, and I was like, you know what? I think I just need to take a break and figure out what's going on. So I quit my job and yeah, I didn't have any energy. I was sitting on the couch and yeah, I was not myself. And then at some point on Instagram, I saw a post from Dr. Mary Claire Haver. And she listed all the symptoms of
Mm.
perimenopause and I could tick them off, so many of them. And I was like, perimenopause? What is perimenopause? I had no idea,
Mhm.
never heard of it.
Mhm.
And that was the start of my like journey that I'm going through to really
Yeah.
figure out what is this and what can I do about it. And that was also the time that all of a sudden I knew there is light at the end of the tunnel. And yeah,
That's the
so
best
there's
part,
a lot
right?
of things happened
Yeah.
in the 2 years ago that I figured it out and
Yeah.
right now.
That's incredible. This is, I mean, this is a new discovery for you
Yes.
that in some cases it almost slapped you. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, what the heck? And
Yeah.
then you were able to, and good for you, because I think a lot of us, you're obviously in tune with your body. So you noticed that things were different. I like a lot of women know that things are different.
Yeah.
They can't put their finger on it, but the fact that you've chose to walk away from a position, and I'm meeting more women like that recently. And it's amazing that I think it takes a lot of bravery to say that as well, to say, whoa, I need to just take a step back and
Yeah.
work. Because it does start with us. It starts with where we are and our level of what we can continue to keep up without burning ourselves
Yes.
out.
Yeah.
And then you got diabetes, and don't forget diabetes is mixed in
Yes,
there
indeed.
too.
Indeed, because that's a totally different
Yeah.
story. Well, actually, not a totally different story, but one of those things that for me, linking to the diabetes story, I got diabetes when I was 18.
Mm.
I was diagnosed. And the first 2 years, I think, was like, yeah, I was very well monitored and very well managed. And then, in your 20s, I just forgot about it a little bit, right? I was like going out, going crazy. I didn't really manage my diabetes very well at the point that at some point my doctor says your A1C is 9. This
Mhm.
is bad. You need to really take care of yourself. And then I
Mhm.
started to really work a little bit better on my diabetes. But diabetes was never a very big part of my life. It was there. I managed. I never had any complications. I never had any
Okay.
issues. So for me, diabetes was there, but it was not a big part of my life until perimenopause hit, because all
Yeah.
of a sudden things that were always so going so well and things were so very, very well maintained and controlled,
Mhm.
all of a sudden there were things happening that I couldn't understand.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
I talked to my endocrinologist about it, he was like, yeah, of course. I mean, hormones do play a role, but we never hear about like women in perimenopause that it's impacting them differently than before. And that was also the moment that I
Mm.
was like, okay, you are not a person to have that conversation with, which I accepted.
Yeah.
But I also find it very concerning
Yeah.
that my endocrinologist and probably many, many more do not
Mhm.
really have that connection or information about the relationship between type 1 diabetes and perimenopause.
All those other hormones that are
Yeah,
happening. Yes,
yeah,
yes, it shocks me, and again, this is not
yeah.
new to our listeners here that listen to us often here on the show, but reiteration is good because I think the
Yes.
more of us that can say, "Me too. Yes, that's my experience." And what was the well, you mentioned this to me prior that well, and this affected your work and
Yeah.
what you were doing on the job. So that sounds like that was the biggest kind of light bulb that went off as far as
Yeah.
we can call it brain fog, lack of focus, and things like that. So sounds like that was your biggest.
Yeah.
Woo, what's
That
going
was
on?
for
Yeah.
me, wow, what I had no idea that something
Mm,
like that could impact your whole, like for me, mostly my brain, my energy, my lack of concentration,
yeah.
my brain fog, my anxiety. All of a sudden, I had those like 3 a.m. I think a lot of women know about these. Those
Yeah.
3 a.m. waking up, being anxious about, oh my God, I have this meeting tomorrow. And I was thinking about how can I get out of
Mhm.
this meeting, which
Mhm.
is, it was so not me. But when that started to happen almost on a daily basis,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, I cannot continue like this. This is not
Yeah.
what I want to contribute
Mhm.
to a very fast-paced organization. I was like, no, this is not me. I need to do something
Yeah.
about this. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a very, and I also have to say, I am super lucky that I had the option to actually quit my job. My husband is extremely supportive in
Oh,
this whole process. So without him, I could not have done
right.
this way.
That's
So I have to say, I'm super lucky with that, and I tell him on a regular basis that I really appreciate his support and help here.
yeah.
Because I also know that it is not for everyone that they can just say,
That's so true.
yeah,
Yes. 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 You had that liberty to be able to do that. Like,
yes,
and there, and then I think back to that endo doctor that you brought this attention to. Do you remember talking to him about not feeling different, the brain's not focusing like it once did? Do you remember talking about it on that level as far as those
no,
symptoms?
no,
No.
because
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's
Okay.
because I'm from the Netherlands and we are always just take care of it. Just carry this. Just try a little bit harder. That's how we were
Okay.
raised. So I
Yeah.
never really brought these things to a doctor. Also, not my
Okay.
GP. Never. I remember 2 years ago when I had my annual that I said, well, I'm like tired and he said, yeah, of course. I mean, you have like a 7-year-old son and you are like 40 plus. So yeah, I can imagine that things are a little bit more difficult. But
Okay.
that
Okay.
was it.
Okay. That's
But
interesting.
looking back, I definitely had in the last 10 years things that now fall into place. Why? Because
Mhm.
when I was beginning 40, 41, I had a few things that looking back, like why did my doctor linking my age to my symptoms
Yeah.
right then? Why did this doctor not say, let's talk about perimenopause?
Yeah.
Nothing, no one ever
Yeah.
that brings
No,
that up.
no, no, it wasn't in their training. It
And
wasn't in their vocabulary. You bring up something that is so, because I was very similar. My perimenopause, that term really wasn't something I knew about. I definitely knew of menopause, but I didn't really have a way to kind of put any sort of a framework or expectation around what that was going to be like or
yep,
feel like alongside type 1 diabetes. I had really no clue what to look for, or what
yep,
to notice. So I totally get that. It was
yep.
in this, all these things kept stacking up and nobody put it together. Nobody was pointing to hormones. I wasn't putting it to hormones. So I know. Yeah.
Well,
It's
and
so
the
incredible.
interesting thing is,
It's just, yeah.
yeah, and the interesting thing is, I never had any issues with my cycle. I never had any like very
Okay.
weird, like hormonal changes in the sense that I acted differently this time of my period. And so that was never the case. I was very
Nothing too
it was very
traumatic.
stable. And now I'm like at the end of I think end of perimenopause. I all of a sudden notice like, oh my God, it's my ovulation. And I'm so nothing should happen because I get angry so quickly. And all of a sudden, I get that things that I
Right.
never
Right.
experienced before.
Yeah.
And then, in addition, of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
my diabetes changes and my glucose levels that are yes changing. This is totally new, and indeed, no one
Hmm.
prepares you for
Yeah.
this. No one tells you this is what's
Right.
going to happen, even at the time that you know you're in perimenopause, then they still don't
Yeah.
say, "Hey, but also make sure that you know
Right.
that you
Right.
understand how your
Yes. I know.
glucose levels are going to change, that you need
Hmm.
more insulin certain times of the month."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Still
The
so
old
much to
saying,
learn.
knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. Knowledge is power.
Yeah,
That's a term that we hear a lot, but it
yeah,
truly does fit our
yeah,
situation. The number one motivator for my book that just hit the
yeah,
shelves just a few weeks ago is really to provide the information, validate, and then
yeah.
just so that women know that they're not going through this alone, and to give them clear direction on what to do for sure. So how did you learn, or are you in that process now? Share with us to trust your body again. What has been, so what's the tail end of your 2 years now? I know a little bit more than the listeners know because I can't wait to share with them that in just 2 years, I know 2 years can seem like a long time, but where are you now when it comes to your body and how you're feeling?
Yeah, so 2 years ago when I figured out like, this is perimenopause, I started to read a lot about perimenopause. I started to try to understand everything, what's going on in your body, what you can do. And of course, you were thinking about, okay, I need to exercise more and I need to eat better. And I realized I really tried at that point, but it's so difficult if you are not feeling like yourself, if you don't have the energy. Looked at the Menopause Society website to find a doctor
Mm.
who
Mm-hmm.
actually was on that list. So I'm like, at least I have someone who understands more about hormones, who probably wants to prescribe HRT to me, because I figured out that's what I wanted to start taking. And then I met with the doctor and I was like, I know everything. I know what I want. I know everything, how things work. And then, yeah, 15 minutes later, I walked out of that doctor's appointment with a birth control pill prescription. And I was
Uh,
flabbergasted when I was, yeah,
mm.
driving back home. And I was so angry at myself. Like, how is this possible? I don't want this. And I told her, but she says, but this is how we are going to do it. And she had a plan.
Understood.
And
Yeah.
she still insisted, and I
Yeah.
was there and was like, "Okay." I was so angry. So I started talking to my friends about that, and one of my friends says, "You need to go to my doctor," because she always proactively talks about if there are anything that you wanna try with hormones, especially when you're getting older and things are going a little bit differently, there are lots of hormonal options that can help you. And she says she always like, she says, "I don't need that," at that point. She said, "But go to my doctor because at least he talks about
Hmm.
it." And
There
then I
you
was like,
go. There you go.
"Okay,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna do that." So I
Mm.
had an appointment and I was like, "I need to prepare differently because if that doctor is
Mm.
going to have exactly the same like approach that she has an option, she has a strategy which I don't want. I want to be prepared how to still get what I need." So instead of only preparing with knowledge about HRT and about hormones, I also started thinking about, okay, what am I going to do when she's going to say this? Or what am I going to do if she's going to
Mhm.
say why? Or when she's going to push
Mhm.
back? And that's, so I prepared that doctor's visit in a totally different way. And that really
Mm.
helped me. And fortunately, I didn't have to use the very strong pushback, but I was able to guide that
Right.
conversation myself in a way that I got what I
Right.
wanted.
Right.
And that was super
Yeah.
helpful. And I was like, everyone, it is not about knowledge, it's about knowing what to say at the right
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
for me, so I started hormones at that point, and that was for me. The hormones were the accelerator for everything else that you need to do to be healthy. So at that time, I
Mhm.
felt that I got my energy back to be able to exercise.
That's so true.
I
Right.
got an
Right.
energy back to think about food and nutrients way better.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
see HRT not as the solution on its own, but it's the accelerator for everything
Yeah.
else that you need to do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when you're in perimenopause and menopause.
It's
Yeah.
I
So,
really
yeah,
like how you described that. Yeah, the accelerator.
yeah,
It really does drive all the pieces that needs to be part of that plan. So yeah,
yeah,
I really like
yeah.
that for
It
sure.
was so difficult. It's
You
so
the old
easy to,
saying, we can't just slap a patch on it and
yeah,
walk away.
yeah.
There has to be some. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
indeed, because
It's
in
not
a
the
lot of people say,
solution,
yeah,
but it does.
HRT is the solution. I was like, well, it's the start of everything.
Hmm.
It's the start
Yeah.
of taking care of the rest that is so important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think of hormones as well, and I'm sure you can agree, because when we're depleted, there's gaps. There's gaps in how we feel. There's gaps in what our body needs to function well. So I kind of look at it's kind of fill in the gaps, but we still need to do the work. We
Yes.
still, we need to have a good sleep routine. We need to be choosing good foods most of the time. It's the whole 80-20 rule, all those things. So that's definitely part of the equation for sure. And not to mention, it helps the process of the hormones work better. Again, they go side by side with all of those other elements for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really
Oh,
good.
definitely.
So that is good. And you are still in perimenopause at this point. So
Yes. I was
at
the interesting
48.
thing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing is last year I thought this was it. 11 months without a period. And then it started again. So,
Okay.
it's,
Close, but quite there. Yeah.
I'm close, but
Yeah.
not quite there yet. And I have to say, the
Right.
last few
Right.
months were like terrible with that regards, because I really
Oh,
I feel my body pushing so hard so it's really trying to get the to get the egg out and so I
yeah.
really feel all of a sudden again what I never had, all those like changes in your body during ovulation and then
Hmm.
your period.
Hmm.
It's a totally different experience than like 5 years ago.
Right. So how has the last 2 years and now presently, how is life managing blood sugar? So what are you noticing? What's shifted for you?
Well, especially the thing is that it's still difficult to really say this is how my glucose levels are behaving around this time of your cycle. It's every time it's a surprise. Because sometimes like okay, when around my ovulation I need a little bit more, but then the next month it's the opposite. So
Oh,
the only thing
okay.
that I know that there's so much more change that
Yeah.
it's unpredictable,
Yeah.
but just staying very close and also accepting that things are chaotic and accepting that it will be okay and accepting that, yeah, there is
Yeah.
a little bit more ups and downs, but at
Yeah.
least understanding it's not because I don't manage it well, it's because my
Mm,
hormones are going crazy. And that mindset change, that is
yeah.
really what's helping me
Mm.
with, yeah, staying cool about it and not.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. The first step, just like you say, really is accepting and just sitting in it and saying, this is where I'm at. This is what I've got for we don't know how many more years, but just having that acceptance. It does. It's a different relationship now with our diabetes. We've had
That
years of being a little bit more predictable, a little bit more feeling like that we've got it nailed a little bit with with our pump settings, our basal settings, all those things, carb count,
that
and then suddenly the rules change. I think that's the number one thing too, is just to realize that And it's okay. It's okay. There is going to be no perfect, but just to realize that this is just a new stage. Your body needs your love. It needs your cooperation.
Yes.
More so than ever, but just like you said, just to have grace and patience
Yes.
and remembering how hard we work every day. It's just incredible how much,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
how,
it's funny because I recently I heard someone saying like a lot of people don't understand how much more decisions we have to make as a type 1 diabetes. And I was like, I
Mhm.
never really looked at it that way. Like, yeah, but it is true. The amount of time that you check your glucose level and you think, do I need more? Do I need less? Can I eat this? What do I need to do when I eat this? There's a lot of decisions, extra decisions that we need to
yeah,
make during the day, that I never thought about that
it's so
before, but yeah,
true.
yeah.
Yes, that is something that we're hearing more and more about. Yes, yes. It goes to show you, I think we get used to it, right?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
kind of autopilot. But again, but when hormones are impacting how we're feeling about all of this, I think that's the number one thing. We talk about the physical symptoms, we talk the physiological changes, but the emotional
Yeah.
side of all of this. It's hard for women aging in general with hormone change. Graciousness
Yeah.
with ourselves and patience and doing the best we can. And, I think back to you were talking about the doctor's visits. And before we go too far, I want you, because I know this is something that you've talked about recently on your own podcast. Tell us about your podcast and
Yes.
this series that you just did about, and you could probably term it better than I did, but basically it's doctor visits. And yeah, tell us about that. You can give us.
Yeah, so for me, that's that first doctor's visit that I was so angry about how that went and that I actually accepted something that I didn't want. I was like, this is something that women should not have to experience. We should be able to get what we want, or at least to have a conversation that is
Yeah.
going in a way how we want it. So I started researching. So how is that possible that happens? Well, I in my there's a three episodes in my podcast. Maybe go back. My podcast is like sharing my story since I
Mhm.
realized I was in perimenopause, because I think it's so important that we share our stories with other women, because
Mhm.
it is still a topic that women don't feel comfortable talking about. And I think it should be something that everyone should talk about, because it is impacting half of the population and it is something that you cannot just
Mm.
dismiss. So I started sharing it so that women hopefully can see, realize like I'm not the only one. But that doctor's visit is a very important one for me, because I think if you understand why a doctor's visit can impact the outcome, you have the option to guide that doctor's visit in a way that you actually have a result that you're happy with. So what I explain in my podcast, in my 3-series podcast, is the psychologically what behind a doctor's visit, right? So you have a doctor,
Mhm.
there is some kind of hierarchy in there, right? It's the doctor
Okay.
sitting across from you in their environment with a very
Mhm.
specific, there is a time crunch, right? You only have
Yeah,
10 to 15 minutes.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
then the most important thing is you are sitting there with your mindset, first of all, a little bit nervous because it's an important topic. Second of all,
Mhm.
you are not feeling like yourself, right? You are anxious,
Mhm.
you feel insecure, your brain fog. Do I still like know what I need to say? And then all of a sudden, before you know it, the doctor takes over and he or
Mhm.
she is going to guide you through like a prescription or an approach that she is always doing. And then the 10 minutes or 15 minutes are over, and that was your chance.
Yeah.
So what I am trying to do is explaining that people understand this, but even most important, like how can you prepare your doctor's visit differently so that it's not about the
Mhm.
knowledge, but it's about knowing how to handle specific questions or specific guidance or
Mhm.
pushback. He or she is going to go back to the WHI research and saying, no, 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 it's dangerous.
Mhm.
You have a higher chance of breast cancer. So if you know how to respond to these kind of like
Mhm.
situations, pushback responses, and you have practiced it, because there's a difference between writing it down and
Mhm.
actually practicing it out loud, then you have a way better chance that you actually get what you need and what you want. Because in my opinion, every woman deserves a very good conversation with your doctor about this. Even if maybe HRT in the end is not something that you are a good candidate for. But you deserve the conversation. And you deserve a conversation in a way with questions and solutions that are important for you. So yeah, those three episodes in my podcast, I'm going deep into the research, the theory around it, and it's linked to an online course, like an hour-long online course. So it's not like a whole day that you are like watching videos, but it's an hour-long online course where I really guide you through, okay, these are situations that you are most likely are going to see in your doctor's visit.
Right.
And what can you do? Make it yours so it's not feeling like I'm saying something that is not mine, but really
Sure.
making it yours so that you can use that whenever these situations comes up in your doctor's visit. Because that was one of the things that I
Right,
really
right,
missed and I was not prepared for. And totally overwhelmed when that happened and it's not needed. So yeah, that is, I think it's an
right.
important three episode series to listen for every woman
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
has her first or even her second or third or a totally like I want to try something new. How am I going to discuss this? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so important. Women I think that you mentioned something that's real important. Even if we have a language about what hormone replacement is and we've heard of the benefits, we can picture how much better we could possibly feel and, blood sugar
Yeah.
response and all of that. And it's not only, I think you've really nailed it when you say that. We can walk in with knowledge, and I think in some cases doctors are a little pushback if we're a little
Yeah.
bit too knowledgeable,
Yeah.
right? You walk in. I think when it's all said and done too, another reminder is that they work for us. They work for
Yeah.
us, our insurance, or we're paying out of pocket, whatever that looks like financially for people. And then there's that conflict or not the conflict, but that we can even walk in dismissing or downgrading really what's important for ourselves,
Yeah.
can't we?
Yeah.
And sometimes the doctor, they can minimize it, they can blame it on other things, and then it's so quickly that can seep into our own thinking about
Yeah.
what we're really experiencing lately
Yeah.
and what's different, and really being
And
able to, yeah,
yeah. And if you are too vague, they don't know what to work with, right? So
that
if you
is
say,
true.
I'm just not feeling like myself lately,
What does
then
that mean?
this person is going to take the conversation over, maybe ask a few questions. But if you know exactly like, I have this list of symptoms, but these
Mhm.
two are the ones that are impacting me the most, right? That
Right,
is a totally
right,
different conversation than saying,
right,
I'm not feeling like myself. Can you help me?
right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's kinda hard to measure that, isn't it?
yeah, because I think
Right,
many
right,
women, when
right.
they're
There's no blood
fine,
test that's gonna
yeah,
determine that you're not feeling like yourself anymore.
indeed. And if you have, and I think every woman almost have like that long list of symptoms when they finally figure out, hey, I'm in perimenopause. Yeah, if you want to focus on solving all these symptoms at the same
Mhm.
time, that is a difficult task. But if you say,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not sleeping well, that is what is impacting me the most at this point.
Yeah.
What can we do to,
Right,
yeah, to
right.
solve that first?
Yeah.
Then you have a very specific focus. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. And I like the idea, like you said, that in your instance, you walked out with birth control pills. And that's very common among
Yeah.
doctors here in the States. Again, they don't understand synthetic versus hormone therapy that is
Yeah.
bioidentical, that is literally replacing what is depleted. And that's
Yeah.
what it's doing. So birth
Yeah.
control and bioidentical are doing two separate things in our body.
Yes.
And they think it's the same. I can remember my mother years ago, before this was even anything in my brain, back when I was in my 20s. I remember my mother going through this. And I remember her, one thing that she was mentioning, and she doesn't live with diabetes, but she was in her late 40s. Night sweats, hot flashes were really, those are the symptoms I noticed. And those are the ones that she talked about. And it's so interesting because it's much more than hot flashes. Much more than that we can really attune back to hormone depletion, basically. But they put her on the synthetic birth control,
Yeah.
and then the HI came around in 2002. She was taken off of them. I was clueless back in those days. I was kind of in the background hearing about it, but no understanding about any of it. So,
Yeah.
it's one of those things. But it's interesting how that has never left me. Just,
Yeah.
those memories of what she went through has never
Yeah.
left me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because my mom indeed, she was in the menopause also relatively young. And looking back, I that was not even a point of discussion. It was like now I look back, like I know I'm so convinced that if she was able to take or was offered hormone therapy at that point, I think she would have benefited so much from it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that was just not what happened at that
I
time.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
No, no, there was, yeah, and that's the sad part is the
yeah,
women that we're seeing that are still being told or not offered this as an option, that
yeah.
are gonna suffer or will continue to suffer. That breaks my heart.
And
Yeah,
what is interesting because I'm originally from the Netherlands, so I still have a lot of connections there. People who indeed work in that part, like the perimenopause and menopause side. And it's funny that they always think that in the US they're so much more further than we are in Europe. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's absolutely not true.
it's
I
not
think
this.
here we have some very vocal people on Instagram that if you follow
Yeah,
them, you have the feeling like, oh my God, everyone in here has access and it's so good
yeah,
and everyone knows
yeah,
about this. And then I'm like, but it's
yeah,
absolutely not true. I
yeah.
see it all around me that doctors are not well informed about this. They don't feel
Mhm,
comfortable talking about it. They don't know what to
mhm.
do. They only think they only offer one thing because that's what they know.
Right, right.
There's so much more. It's such a personal journey. It's such a personal
Yeah.
thing that you cannot just say this is hormone replacement therapy.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
so much more. And I think
Yeah,
people should have the option to try things out, right?
yeah,
And if this doesn't work, there are other options. And I don't think
yeah,
that at this point in the healthcare providers, of course, there are definitely ones that do that, but I think
yeah,
many of them don't do that. So you really you need to advocate for yourself because if you
yeah.
don't advocate for yourself, then the doctor is going to guide you to something that maybe that doesn't fit you.
So perfectly said.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yes, yes.
yeah,
And to discern what is a good direction or the wrong direction in this case. And again, for some women, what they offer may work.
yeah,
It's one of those things. But I think what I loved about what you said, and this is how I feel too. Well, how exactly would you say a woman should organize what they want to say? So it's like before you go, and I love what you said, make a list of the symptoms, clearly understanding, well, this is what I know. This
yeah,
is what I feel would help me,
yeah,
right? Clearly stating that. And another thing that you mentioned, because I did have a chance to listen to your 3 episode series. It's not only what you say, but kind of how you say it.
yeah, yeah.
And you're right to kind of lead the conversation rather than reacting to what they say. So yeah, it's very,
Yeah,
very
so
interesting.
first of all,
Yeah.
I think you need to try to funnel it down, right? So first of all, you need to understand indeed what do I feel and try
Hmm.
to monitor and write things down for a few weeks maybe. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend like an hour each day doing that, but trying to find some trends, especially if you look at your cycle. Are there specific times that I sleep better or worse? Are there certain times that I feel more anxious, right? If you
Right.
nail that down and understand what are my symptoms and how much does it impact my life, then
Yeah.
you nail it down to the things like, okay, these are all my symptoms. This is everything that I feel. This is that. When do I feel this in relationship to my cycle? And then what are the like top two or maybe top three things that
Right. You
are
mentioned that.
really impacting me?
Right.
So
Right.
that is, I think, how you start with making sure you have that clear and take it with you to the
Yeah.
doctor. Show the doctor that you are well prepared. But don't, I think what doctors are allergic about is when you say, doctor, this is what you should do. This is what I
Mm,
need, and I want you to prescribe this. Doctors want to have a conversation together. It's a collaborative
yeah.
exercise.
That's fair.
So it's not just saying, This is what I wrote down. This is what I did. This is what I need.
Mhm.
Just give it to me. Doctors do not respond well to that.
You're right. You're
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
more about, hey, I figured this out. This is what I have uncovered. This is what I would love to try. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah.
Right. And that is a totally different way of asking what
Yeah.
you need and showing that you did your research.
Yeah. You know.
Because it's also clear, and research shows that if you come prepared, doctors are more willing to work with you and give you what you
Yeah.
would like to try.
Another thing too, and this kind of goes back to project planners. This kind of reminds me of my corporate days where if you have an idea for a project and rather than going to say the startup head of a department and say, hey, I would like to do X, Y, and Z. They're like, oh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But guess what? They're not going to take the time to create that project or, all the different details. It's like walking in and saying, hey, this is what I've designed. This is
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
envision. So again, I think that has a lot to do with it as well, don't you? That
Yeah.
they don't necessarily, unfortunately, have the time or even the capacity to some point to really respond
Yeah.
with what you need in that 30 seconds.
Indeed.
And I like the idea too of asking them, is this something you can help me with?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and
Help.
I think
Yeah.
indeed, and having that ready, and so you have a lot of
Yeah.
data with you.
Yeah.
In my online course, I have all those worksheets that you can
Yeah.
fill out, so you don't have to figure things out yourself, but
Mm.
you have like a package of information and
Yeah.
an end course worksheet where you have a prep package that you can bring to your doctor, where
Yes.
you have the most important information for you, most important information for them,
Mm.
what to say, and just the scenarios. If the doctor is going to say this, how am I going to respond?
Mhm.
And you can have a little cheat sheet, and that's totally fine. It is
Sure.
totally fine to have
Sure.
things written down. If the doctor is going to say this, have that line in front of you,
Right. Right. Give me an
right?
example of some responses. Can you remember what you shared on your podcast? I know I'm kind of getting you without maybe notes in front of you, but you did share a couple common responses that doctors may toss your way, and it can catch us off guard to where, yeah. Can you think of some examples?
So I always think about a few things regarding, oh, you're too young, right?
Mm.
You're too young for HRT. You're even too young for perimenopause. And just asking about, well, this is how I feel. Like,
Mm.
can you share what the reasoning is that you say that, right? What is it
Mhm.
based off that you say that I'm too young? Because
Right.
this is what I have prepared, right? This is
Right.
what I
Yeah.
wrote down and what
Mhm.
I see in myself. So not just saying you're wrong, doctor, but trying to understand, where does that come from? Tell me about that, right? And then you have
Yeah.
a conversation with the doctor instead of having that hierarchy that is, and it's also pushed the doctor a little bit on their toes. Like, this woman is not just saying yes to what I say.
Yeah.
This is someone who wants to know more.
Who truly wants
So
help.
you put the doctor into a position like, I'm not just here to nod and say
Mhm.
yes, but I'm here because it's my life and I deserve to have that conversation.
Yeah. I love that. That's really
Yeah.
good.
And there are a few scenarios that I go through. For example, the whole pushback of, no, I'm not going to prescribe you HRT, right? Those kind of things. What can you say when that happens? It's very important that you understand you can ask for, can I try it for 3 months?
Mm.
Right? Can I
Yeah. An
try it?
experiment. Yeah.
And then we come back in 3 months. I'm coming back and then we can reevaluate. But I would love to try this. It's
Mhm.
very difficult for a doctor to say no, you
Right. Right.
cannot.
That's true.
Right?
True.
There's a
Yeah.
difference between saying no and saying, let's
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. And I wonder, they obviously have an oath. Again, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, so I don't want to confuse anybody, but it's that oath to do no harm. And I've heard many of, the doctors that you and I both follow, and it makes sense that this is obviously what they get into medicine to help us. They want to deliver good care. And then I think that when something comes before them that is outside of their prescribing knowledge or even understanding what they're signing for or recommending, there can be that pushback. I guess I can I'm just playing advocate on their end because it's to to agree to something that they're not used to
Yeah.
prescribing without full knowledge, I understand why they would say, well, this is not something. And I guess maybe a doctor doesn't say it in all of that complete sentence. I think that might help all of us. But I think we can pick up on that if that's happening in the
Yeah.
doctor's office. And this is something that I've done personally because I've had this experience myself. Do you know someone that I could go to? Or is there another specialist that you could recommend?
Yeah.
Giving them the chance to say, well, this doesn't sound like this is your expertise. This is not something that your expertise. This is
Yeah.
not in your wheelhouse. So that kind of, I think that's another. Sometimes within the same medical office,
Yeah.
there might be one of their colleagues that is more versed in this. And you know what we always say? This is a great opportunity as we women are coming in with our notepads and our symptom trackers, and we're advocating. And in some cases, we're teaching them. We're
Yeah.
presenting something. And chances are you're not the only one doing it. You and I are both hearing so many women we're talking to, friends we're talking to, clients that we're talking to that are and saying, "Yeah, this is what I really, really want some support
Yeah.
and, help around."
And it
Yeah,
is so sad that we sometimes have to find, or you
no.
go through like 2, 3, maybe even 4 doctors before you find the doctor who actually is willing to work with you, which is super sad. But at this
No.
point, and especially when you are in that, like, I'm not feeling like myself anymore, and everything is heavy and everything takes a lot of energy from you, the energy that you don't even have. So it is
Yeah.
fight that you have to go through, and it's so sad that you still have to do it, but this is the reality. And that's why I love when I hear that there are so many people that are sharing their story to help
Mhm.
others to get that motivation to do that and know, like, hey, this worked for me, maybe it helps for you. You can always learn from other women how what worked for them. And
Yes,
yeah, it's just, I hope that in the next 10 years, 20 years, that things really change again,
I do too. I
because
do too.
it's
We're
going
paving
very
the path.
slowly. It's going very
Mhm.
slowly. But
Mhm.
I think what I hear around me is that many women, also women that are now in their 20s and 30s, they learn a little bit more about perimenopause, and hopefully they are not going to hit those walls that
I
we
agree.
that
Yeah,
we hit
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
But yeah, in the end, it starts with finding a doctor. And it is, again, super important that you find a doctor that you see as where you can build that partnership with, because
Mhm.
this is not something like you get something prescribed and that's done.
Right.
It took me at least a year and a half to really figure out the type of hormone, the dose. I
Mhm.
upped a few times,
Sure.
adding testosterone at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to, it is a journey.
Yes.
It's not something, a quick fix. It's a
Right.
journey, and
It's not a set
once
it and
you're,
forget it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
once you are
true.
on that train
Yeah.
and you start feeling better, you get that energy, yeah, to make it as perfect as
Yeah,
possible. And again, I
yeah.
am not looking for going back to when I was 20, how I felt like that, but being able to feel like yourself again, and all
Mhm.
of a sudden also figure out many things that you didn't
Mhm.
know about yourself. Like, oh my God,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
older is not only a bad thing. It
yeah.
also unlocks a lot of other interesting stuff
Right,
that I
right.
never realized. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Our generation is, I feel we're paving the way. We're just, we're really shedding the light
Yeah.
on this area. And it's for all women. And you and I are both very vested in the type 1 community living
Yeah.
with this chronic disease as well. And just know how important it is. It's tough to grow old as a woman. It's tougher to grow old when you also have a chronic disease.
Yeah.
And if there's ways that we can, again, fill in those gaps and nourish ourselves, and hormones is really a beautiful way to do that. And we can get the opportunity to bring this before a doctor
Yeah.
and to talk to each other about it. I love what you
Yeah.
say too about to getting into some support groups, talking to your girlfriends about it, just
Yeah.
opening up the conversation because chances are maybe they're not as comfortable. Maybe they don't know how to bring it up either, but chances are that's really, really going to kind of explode into a conversation that
Well,
is magical for everybody involved, for
it
sure.
is interesting
It
that you say that,
is.
because when I start talking about it with my friends, all of a sudden you hear things. that I was like, why didn't we talk about this?
I know.
Right?
I
All of a
know.
sudden, you're talking about something that there's still a little bit of a taboo around. But once you have that conversation and it starts and everyone is opening up, oh my God,
Yeah,
it's part of everyone's life
it is. Yeah.
in
And
one way
another
or the
thing,
other.
absolutely. And you talked about your your work environment and how
Yeah,
you were doing. This is another thing, and I didn't say it when you were going through your symptoms in that initial conversation with the doctor. But when you walk in with that, that's a very dramatic change in your life when you
yeah,
feel like you are not capable enough to do your work
yep,
duties and responsibilities. And that to me holds a lot of weight when you're talking to the doctor. So yeah, we really got to share where we're at, all of it, even if it's something you're not comfortable sharing. Really, in the long run, it's really, really going to pay off to
it
be
is.
honest and to be transparent about where we
Yes.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
And yeah, if before you know it, you have many conversations about it, and
yeah,
people are going to ask questions.
yeah,
Hey, this is what am I? Do you think that's
yeah,
also part of perimenopause?
yeah,
Oh, the amount of information that I share with my friends, yeah, it's a lot. But
yeah.
it's once something opens up, all of a
Yeah.
sudden they want to
Mhm.
understand more, and they also start to look at themselves differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
this impacts the men in our life as well. So
Yes.
I know since I've been writing my book this past year, my husband, he's pretty versed on perimenopause and menopause. It's funny to hear him bring it up among
Yeah.
friends
Yeah.
when it makes sense to. He doesn't just toss it out there, but bringing his friends and with the relationships with their wives, and it's a wonderful thing happening. The men are
Yeah.
some are a little more comfortable than others because it's a little something they're not used to hearing about, but it needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
It's so, so important for all these
Yeah.
relationships with our children
Yeah.
and parents, all the different
Yeah,
relationships we have.
indeed, it is. It's impacting everyone.
Yeah.
Partner, kids, friends, family, colleagues.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you don't have to share everything in the amount of detail that you
Uh,
share these things, for example, with your partner.
sure.
But it is good to understand how can I at least say what I need at that point.
Mhm.
So it's all about, yeah, I think communication is
Mhm.
super important in this stage of life.
Absolutely.
And you cannot be quiet about this because it's impacting your life. So you have to share what you need.
Absolutely. Well, that's a beautiful way to end the show today. But before we go, I want you to talk a little bit more about your podcast. Give us the name. I mean, you gave us a little sneak peek just a minute ago, but tell us a little bit more. And what's your mission with that show right now?
Yeah, so the podcast is called Perimenopause Unfiltered, and it does what it says. I share my whole story about my perimenopause journey from beginning up to where I am
Okay.
right now, and I share what I went through, the things, the decisions that I made. But also the information that was important for me to know. I debunk, or not I debunk, but I talk about the WHI study and
Hmm.
like, yeah, why that study is interpreted incorrectly just with the data that is out there. I'm
Hmm.
not a medical professional, so
Okay.
everything that I share is just what the information from research that's out there. So yeah, that's what I share in this podcast. I also have a few guests that share their stories so that you hear from other people. You probably have a link in the show notes
I
for
sure
women,
will.
yeah, who would like
I sure will.
to listen to it. And I always
Absolutely.
say, keep sharing your story, keep
Mm,
sharing each other's stories because we are just getting started. There's so
yeah.
much to do.
Yeah. It helps us and it will help others as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. That connection is something that we also needed. And yes, because we get to, right?
Yes,
These are
absolutely. And
things we
hopefully,
get to do.
yeah, I don't have a daughter. I have a son
Mhm.
who knows exactly that. Yeah, he
That's
knows that
good.
I'm dealing with
I
hormones,
love
etc.
that.
Of course, in on his level.
Right.
But I hope for uh, friends who have daughters
Yeah.
that they really have a totally
Absolutely.
different experience. And that's why what I'm doing, right? Not only for myself, but for other women and for the next generation.
Yeah, but absolutely. Well, awesome. Well, we're going to say goodbye today. All of your information, Sasha, will be here in the show notes. So be sure to connect with Sasha, and
Yeah.
we will see you all back in here same time next week. Thanks again for being here.
Thank you so much.